So I am thrilled to be joined today by my guest, who is also one of my dearest friends. She's a creative artist, author, illustrator, and advocate for vulnerable communities. Dena McMillon-Billups, welcome to Motivational Mondays.
Well, thank you so much, Corey. I am so excited about being here for Motivational Monday and to be with you. I just don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm excited.
It'll look
I know it's going to
fabulous.
be something exciting.
Yeah, it'll look fabulous. You're one of our first guests for our now on video podcast. So Motivational Mondays is now on video, and you are, I think, my third on camera guest. So you're part of our new beginning here. So thank you for that. But moving right along, though, I want to congratulate you though on your book, your success for your debut book. And it's called Naked, Stripping to the Core in 40 Days. Seems kind of provocative, the word naked. And then you have a beautiful illustration on the cover of a woman who's sort of bending down, crouching, very vulnerable, but beautiful. So explain why you wrote this book. What's it about?
That's a good question. Very good question. I have this painting, and it's actually hanging up on my wall that I painted. And on the wall, there is this little girl in the painting, and she has these two puffs made out of newsprint. Okay. And then across her mouth is the words finding words. And that's also made out of newsprint as well. And one of the things that, and you know this, you're probably more familiar being in the media, is that there are a lot of times when, and I use the newsprint purposefully because a lot of times someone else is telling your narrative,
Mm,
someone else is telling your story. And so, one of the reasons why I wrote this book is because there were a lot of women who were a part of my village and leadership positions, who didn't really know their worth,
mm,
and they ended up in either really bad situations, suicide, domestic violence,
mm,
substance use disorder. And I just said, wow, if they could only have found their words. And so this book gives that opportunity for someone to read the book and doodle their thoughts and take their time through a 40-day journey, of really finding who they are at their core. And so, naked, stripping to the core in 40 days, needing less to be more. So it strips you of the labels and all of those things, and just kind of saying, well, who am I? And so that's one of my motivating factors, is the people and the women that have been in my life that I've lost.
mm. That is very profound and very heartfelt. And I know that for you too, you bring a lot of your own personal experiences, obviously, to this equation as well. One of them is that you were a young mom. And I know that for you, being a young mom was like for many women was very difficult in many aspects, but you never gave up hope of your dreams, ambitions, career aspirations, and you kept going. And now you're a mentor for other young mothers. So share with me that experience about how being a young mother, having that responsibility, how that prepare you for now the role of mentoring others?
So, I think life prepares you. And one day, literally, I had to make a decision between my 3-year-old in preschool at the time and my job.
Mm,
I had to make a decision because my 3-year-old had got the chicken pox. And so that day, in making that decision, I actually lost my job.
mm,
And I was let go of the job, and I just kind of dusted myself off, and I found the biggest job fair there was in the community we grew up
mm-hmm,
in Trenton, New Jersey. And I went there for a job fair with my resume, knowing that I just lost my job and had to make a decision because my daughter had was sick. And I just said, wow, there has to be more opportunities. And so one of my greatest gifts is perseverance and resilience, which can be very exhausting. When you think about, we talk about the word resiliency a lot. And but I knew that I could help other young women find the same language, and we had a common language because we had gone through some of the same adverse, maybe childhood experiences. And I knew that there was a power of choice. And so I could have sulked in, whatever current state that I had, or I could I understood the power of choice.
Mm,
And so it was very important for me to persevere and to use every opportunity I had. So when I showed up that day at this job fair, the job fair was for young women, teen moms. And I had this awesome opportunity, only being shy of a teen mom myself at that time, to run a program in Trenton, New Jersey, where I was hiring and running a whole program full of teen moms.
mm,
I got and it was a program called Minnesota Early Learning Division back then, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I had this urgency to not only help others, but to continue to help myself. And I ran with it, and it was through the Urban League of Trenton, New Jersey, and Minnesota. I traveled to Minnesota, got certified, and that was my journey to
mm.
helping young mothers. And I knew that if I could come out of some of those situations and keep moving, then I could, mentor others in that same way.
Wow, that's really amazing because so often people who want to do well and want to help,
Mm-hmm.
they really haven't walked in those shoes. So they have good intention, but
Mm-hmm.
they may not be the best one to sort of lead that, I guess, lead someone out of that situation or through that situation. Someone who's been through it really
Yes.
are better equipped to do it. And it's also fascinating for me to think about
Mm-hmm.
women still facing the idea of I have to either go to put my kid in daycare, which I might not be able to afford, or take my kid to work with me, which I can't do.
Right.
Where does that leave you? And it's crazy that that's still actually something that women are facing still. Like they faced it in my mom's
Yeah.
generation, you faced it, and they're still facing it. That's pretty
Yeah.
unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And I think about that time and, what it took for me to just still have the dignity to say, well, I have to do something,
Mhm.
and, I ended up doing really well in the next job where I was mentoring others, and I ended up in the newspaper, look, finding my words.
Isn't that funny?
And that old job that let me go, they actually called me back and asked me if I would come back to work for them. And
Mm.
so, there's power in making a choice and to keep moving and keep moving forward. And
Well,
I
I
want
hope
to
you said yes, but like triple the salary though. I mean,
I said no, and it was the best thing that I could have done. And then it led me to greater opportunities.
hmm.
And they saw me in the newspaper, so I said no.
Oh, right. So did they call you after they saw you in the
After
newspaper?
they saw me in the
Come
newspaper,
on, y'all. They didn't even try to hide it. They're like, hey, we were thinking about you. And you were
no.
like, no, you weren't. You just saw me in the
Yeah,
paper.
no, they saw me in the newspaper and said, that they were pretty, when they let me go, they said some really harsh things, and they said, you probably just end up at Wawa. And that was a motivating factor for me.
No, they
Not that
didn't.
Wawa, people
Yeah,
don't have
nothing wrong with
great,
Wawa,
nothing
but
wrong with Wawa, but
it
it
was
wasn't,
used as
it
an
wasn't
insult.
used, it was used as an insult.
Right. Wow. Okay. Well, jokes on them. Wah wah. So, anyway, I do want to move on to something a lot more optimistic, which is you created a program called A.R.T, and it's the training and development program that you
Mhm.
created, and it's to empower leaders, which is, of course, perfectly aligned with what we do. So, I want to hear more about that program. Activate Right Thinking is the acronym that the ART stands for. So, share a little bit about that program, why you created it, and what is it all about?
Yes, I'm so excited to talk about. I'm always excited to talk about our program. I've been in child welfare, working in child welfare for about 20 years, and in 2016, I ended my career as a professional educator and development specialist for working in child welfare and training child welfare workers. And so, and when I left with the the urgency to want to still help professionals, but in a way where I could really help professionals work on their whole self. And so what I did was um, I just had this goal in mind that I was going to take and incorporate all of the things, so there's some good things that I know, we're in this world where there are a lot of people who are pursuing entrepreneurship, but all of the skills I obtained over the years working for these companies, working for the state of New Jersey.
Mm,
And now I actually contract with the state of New Jersey back at my old job, being and Rutgers and Stockton and New Jersey Child Welfare Partnership under Art of Training and Development. And that was a goal of mine to do. So although I did leave, I didn't leave the family, so to speak. And
hmm.
I'm still able to make impact in that industry with those professionals, and making real change. So there's two legs to Art of Training and Development, and one of the legs is coaching, and the other one is training. In order to be a good coach, you really have to be able to train people and expand leadership and expand the vision that we have, to work with vulnerable communities. And our mission is to eradicate those poverty mindsets through coaching
Yes.
and training.
Yes, I definitely want to talk about that because I know that you are expanding leadership opportunities and development in the urban communities, as you mentioned, through what you say is eradicating the poverty mindset. So I would love for you to explain more about what does that mean to eradicate the poverty mindset?
When you think about poverty mindset, there is this idea, that people may be thinking in a way that they're influenced by negative thoughts, and that have been passed down from generation to generation. And you actually don't have to be in a impoverished area or urban area to have a poverty mindset. It is just that you're limited by those negative belief systems that may
Mm,
have been told to you. Um, you know, I can think of a common one, being a teen mom. I remember someone saying, oh, you're just going to be a baby, babies having babies, or, and if you believe those things or you believe those thoughts, then they can keep you from moving forward. And I knew in my mind that that would not give me the abundance of who I was, or that would not, those thoughts would not take me to my place of self-wealth.
mm,
And
absolutely.
so that's really important. So when you think of poverty mindset, it's kind of breaking off of those cycles of those limited beliefs.
No, that's so true. I have a client who is a mutual friend of ours who wanted me to help her with some getting more comfortable speaking in front of a crowd with speeches because she's done so well. She's now being asked to do conferences, and we did some work to try to get past her fears of speaking publicly. And what was fascinating was as I peeled back the layers of why she was nervous to speak. It was
Mm,
tied to like trauma of like childhood stuff, of like being told that she wasn't smart enough to speak as a child, or shut up, what do you know? You're just a kid, or whatever the situations are. It's that sort of like the unresolved trauma that we experience in many cases that we bring forward and kind of gets us stuck in a circumstance that we can't get out of. And
yeah.
I think it was really amazing that we kind of, we peeled back that layer. So for you, you're saying unless you can see yourself out of that, you will be stuck in it, basically.
Yes, absolutely. And what we want to do, and part of activating right thinking, is changing the patterns of your brain or your mindset, the way you think, and creating a new narrative for yourself. And teaching people what you just did with a mutual friend of ours is teaching people how to find their words so that they can see their self-worth. And
Mm.
so, that is clearly a good example of what changing those mindsets would look like.
Yeah, it's so important, especially with children, because the vulnerability of a child believing about themselves what the adults in the room tell them about themselves when they're a child, there's a high probability that that will stick.
Yeah.
And so many kids get damaged early on by not having that nurturing support at home and actually getting quite the opposite. So it can be really, really damaging. So I'm glad that you are addressing that area in your work. Now, another key focus of your work too is bridging the gap between marginalized communities and the leaders in those communities who can make a difference.
Mhm.
And you do a lot of different things in that line of work. So tell me about some of the things you do to bridge those gaps.
Sure. So it, it's really important that we invest in ourselves. And one of the things before I got into the coaching industry is I did a lot of investing in training for myself and understanding those powerful concepts that make a difference in our lives. And so in coaching, there are a lot of models that one might use. And the thing that I think about when I've coined activate right thinking, or and that concept and how I use that, I use the art of perception a lot. And you
Hmm.
talked about how one perceives themselves. So even if you look behind me, and you see this is the cover of my book, right? I would say one way, or one uh thing that I would do is ask you, like, Corey, tell me what you see. you know I would challenge you and you would say what you see. So oftentimes when I'm working with a group of people, and I'm working to, heal our communities, most people tell me what they see. I had one person say, I see spaghetti, broccoli, and scrambled eggs. Like, and the funny thing is, she's a funny person. So when she said that, I just cracked up laughing because I was like, wow, she visualized this drawing that I drew as spaghetti. And then somebody said, oh, it looks like wood to me, or it looks like somebody that's just bent over, or somebody that's praying. Like everyone sees and perceives from their own being or their own perspective, which is
Right.
which is so powerful, because how do you move forward unless you know how you perceive things,
Hmm.
unless you know how you think? So that is a way, when I talk about activating right thinking, I'm just asking questions to find out what you're thinking, what's in your world, what are your thoughts, and you can totally perceive something different than I do.
Hmm.
And we want to bring that. I believe communities are very resourceful. I don't really buy into programming so much our communities, because if we just reach far enough, we can really hear from and give them a voice, and they can tell us what they think, and we teach people how to think. And so I love that we're able to do that utilizing the art of perception.
Yeah. Yeah, you do mention that because that does tie into, in a way, the connection of the marginalized communities who need the more established elders in the communities to help them see a better path. And then
Mhm.
that ties into the art of perception, because once you do that, then those people can perceive that there's other options, there's more possibilities.
Mhm.
It's so funny for me. My mom tells me that since I was a kid, it began with me trying to get out of my crib. I was
Mm.
already like, get me out of here. I want to see what's on the other side. To the point where, like, she came in the room, she heard a crash. I had like flipped out of it. The crib was on top of me, and I wasn't even crying. I was still crawling because I was like, well, okay, I'm out. Let me see. It was an innate nature for me to want to see the world. And then I had grandparents who didn't travel. To them, traveling was almost a scary thing. They didn't go anywhere. And so I had this sort of really interesting observation of, how on one hand I was almost like stifled by one set because they didn't really have the emotional ability to expand and kind of help me build a bigger, broader picture. And then my mother though said, "Go see the world," and and thank goodness, because that's the advice to give a child, let them think that the world's full of possibilities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here like kind of laughing because that was my son. He would, like, we were sitting downstairs and my cousin was visiting from Atlanta, and she said, I hear something upstairs. And I'm like, no, my he's in the crib. She's like, no, something's going on. And we go up and we're like, okay, let's sit back. And he's climbing out of the crib. And now that makes me laugh because that is his personality. He,
Well,
and he also uses a lot of language that I talk about when I talk about the mindset and the brain and brain health. I do a lot of work on brain health. And he'll say, no, mom, my brain is telling me.
Mm.
Like
And now his age, now
now,
let's people
he's
let
six,
us know. Yeah, he's 6 years old, right?
6 years old. And he's
Yeah.
like, mom, no, that's not true. That's not what my brain is telling me. And I'm like, I am not gonna have this like argument with the 6-year-old, but I've taught him
Right.
how to think for himself early. And
Hmm.
like, I don't know, it could be,
Yeah, it's
you
a
know,
curse.
inspired.
Well, I want to talk about that beautiful little son of yours because he's a sweet soul on this earth, and I love all the posts that you share of him on Facebook. He's a little angel, and I do want you, if you wouldn't mind, to share the story of how he came into your life, and what that's been like for you as his mother.
One of the biggest things about leadership is you're walking through a journey, and you don't really know what that journey is going to where that journey is going to take you. And so I feel like I've lived out this naked book, stripping to the core in 40 days. So in 2016, also when I left my job, my husband and I got a call that we had an hour to make a decision
Mm.
about you know a beautiful baby boy coming to our home. And so that has been that was in 2016, and now he's 6 years old. And so we've been able to not only allow him to come into our home as our child, but we've adopted him, and he's it's just been an amazing journey. I joke, I laugh because when he first came into my home and I said, well, what's his name? And they, told me his name, and I'm like, did you say Messiah? And, and I'm
That's
like,
it. That was his
yeah,
real name.
that's his real
Wow.
name. And I'm like, okay, God has jokes, but on the other hand, people say how lucky he is, but it's really how lucky we are that everything that I've done in life, that I had this second opportunity to mother again, and to do it and shape and be a part of shaping his life and giving him a voice, and all of the things that we talk about. I just knew that with him coming into our home, that he has greatness in him, and that I had this awesome responsibility and job. My husband and I have this awesome responsibility to pull all of that out of him and just love on him, and and just love on each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, you see all the posts that I put.
Yep.
He's even telling me now when he doesn't want to be posted.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
gaining like quite a following. That's why.
Right. He's
He's
dating,
like,
right.
Mom, it's too
It's
much
too
for
much.
me.
Like,
Yeah,
don't put
yeah.
that up. And he has a mind of his own. So
Yeah, that's really wonderful. And it's important to mention too, like you mentioned, you're being a mother for the second time.
yeah.
You have an amazing daughter, and now she's actually going to have a baby. And
Yes.
so it's fascinating to, for me, having known you all these years, to see you in this such a um, such a thriving, I even want to a youthful, vibrant existence. Like, I mean, as if we were still, kids basically. And you're a mom, and you're about to become a grandmom, and you're like just got the energy of like a 24-year-old, and you're just, an entrepreneur and an author and an artist. I really want to have you on the show because I wanted to show an example of an empowered woman, an
Wow.
empowered minority woman who has walked her own path, learned from her mistakes, built a foundation for a new career path. I mean, you check a lot of boxes. I'm extremely impressed with you, and I just wanted to make sure I said that because I just really, really think you are an amazing person. So, had to have you on the show for that reason. Thank you so much, Dena McMillon-Billups, author of Naked, Stripping to the Core in 40 Days. I so appreciate you, and you're just, again, you're magic, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. And I look forward to just, sharing all of these things with your audience.